Being nice just won't cut it. My guest this week has the research to prove that compassion and accountability are actually complementary. And he is passionate about helping others hold people accountable in ways that allows them to thrive and grow. Bottom line, if you truly care about someone, turn your trust to them to be responsible for their behaviors, not just for your success, but for their success. And so, without further ado, I am delighted to have a bit of a girl crush, not going to lie, on Nate Regier, and he is joining us. Welcome, Nate.
Thank you, Jenny. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure. We were mentioning before we press record that you're coming to us from around Wichita, Kansas, correct?
Yeah, and our snow's all melting, and I guess your snow's getting ready to come.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, actually, we have another snowstorm coming, so I'll have some empathy
Yeah.
for what you're all going through.
There you go. There you go. Well, it's been quite the year for weather, and it's been quite the year, just to do a segue, for leadership and conversations
Yeah,
about leadership, eh?
yeah,
This whole second series, this whole season for me is all about a new paradigm of leadership. That's what I've sort of challenged everybody on the recordings to talk about. And I'd love to hear your kind of aha moment or the light bulb moment, Nate, about this compassion and accountability and kind of I'm seeing like the peanut butter and the chocolate on the Reese's Pieces. If you're old
yes.
enough to remember that what was that moment like for you, Nate?
Oh, it was an emerging thing over my
Okay.
life, and I think a few key moments happened growing up. We were talking earlier before we went on here that I grew up the son of missionary parents with the Mennonite faith. They were working in Africa, and the Mennonite denomination is very much focused on peace, nonviolence, pacifism, and so I got kind of beat into me growing up. Always be nice, always be kind, always turn the other cheek, never resort to violence. It's okay to be angry, but it's not okay to hit. And so that was kind of indoctrinated in me. And yet I grew up in environments where people were doing some not okay
Mm-hmm.
things. And it was unjust and apartheid in Southern Africa. And so I just kept thinking, well, but we have to address the behavior. We can't just roll over and take it. And that's not the intent. I mean, real activism and nonviolence is way more than that. But in those moments, even growing up, I'm like, there has to be a third way. There's got to be a balance between being kind and nice. And also, we have to talk about the behavior and we have to deal with this stuff directly.
Yeah, 100%. And the community that I represent, as women, I find we are looking for, I'm moving my shoulders around if you're listening, for like the comfortable leadership style that feels okay, feels sincere. We know the top down doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
And so I find we're really searching. And what I loved about, I'll mention right away your book, Compassionate Accountability, How Leaders Build Connection and Get Results. And you
Yeah.
had me at connection and then you added results, like that we don't have to sacrifice.
Yeah.
That's really interesting to me.
Yeah.
So I realize I've jumped over a whole section because I forgot. I was so
Yeah.
excited to
Yeah.
talk. Nate, would you introduce yourself and who you are and where you're from to our audience? I got so excited. I jumped right over that part.
Well, that's a great, actually, I love podcasts that just jump right in and it's like, hey, everybody, I'm Nate Regier. I am the CEO of Next Element Consulting. We are a global leadership consultancy that focuses on building cultures of compassionate accountability so that leaders don't have to compromise relationships for results. And
Oh,
we do everything from coaching, training, consulting, even train the trainer certification, because we want to embed these principles and capabilities within organizations so that whole systems can set up conditions where people can thrive and flourish.
yeah. So we need more of this. You talked about results without compromising relationships. That really resonates with myself, with my clients, and
Mm,
finding a way to express your needs, if that's the right term. You talk about valuable, capable, and responsible. I'm
yeah,
paraphrasing.
yeah,
What are those three switches? I can't wait to
yeah.
hear more.
Well, the word compassion is at the root of all of this. And I think we have misunderstood and really gotten into a very limiting understanding and practice of what compassion is. The going definition now is compassion is empathy in action. My heart goes out to you and I want to go fix it. I want to go solve the problem. I want to take away your pain. And that that is a very limited understanding, because the word compassion actually it means with suffer. It doesn't mean take away the suffer. It means get in there with them. Because in a work setting, in a typical professional setting, this is outside of areas where there's major injustice, major, where we have to intervene and stop things. In a major professional setting, people don't want you to take away the pain. They want you to get in there with them so that together we figure this out. That's empowering.
Yeah.
That's building capability. That's treating us as I can do this and we
Yeah.
can do this together. So I think that's what compassion is about. But that's hard because we're equals in this process. And that really changes the dynamics of the game.
Yeah.
And that's where we had to come up with, well, what is the mindset shift? How do we need to think differently about ourselves and each other in order to struggle with people, instead of just go in and swoop in and take away the pain, because so our heart feels better.
Take away the pain so our heart feels better. Oh, as a parent, I can relate to that. That's where actually that hits me
Yeah.
big time. And I think about language. Anytime you get into an us them mentality, whether it's employers, employees, whether it's board staff, whether it's
Yeah.
colleagues, advantages or whatever, you're kind of sunk at that point. If you can't shift that mindset,
Yeah.
it's really,
Yeah.
you can almost smell it when you walk into cultures, right? When people
Yep.
have we do it this way, or they don't participate. And the language is so divisive, Nate.
Yeah.
But it's hard. Let's just talk about, your first lever, which is valuable.
Yeah.
Truly believing someone is valuable, that they are important to you. Let's just be clear, because of that they're a person on this planet, not because they're a person that does a job for you,
Mm.
right?
Yes.
And
Value.
yeah,
Value is not contingent. Value is inherent. And that's what it means to be two humans or three humans or a billion humans on this planet. So that's the fundamental belief, is we are all worthy of being seen, heard, affirmed, included, and invited. And but that's just the first lever.
yeah,
That's all fine and good. But if we just stop there, it would be DEI run amok,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Anything goes, everybody's worthwhile,
yeah,
everyone gets a prize. It's like, no, because humans are not just valuable. We are capable. We are endowed with gifts and skills and experiences and personalities and
yeah,
value systems and traditions and all these things we bring to the table that should be leveraged and maximized and brought to bear. And so that's why the second lever is capability, that we see each other as capable of learning and growing. And if we see each other that way, then we make investments. We ask for more. We teach. We
yeah,
ask curious questions. We fail forward, all that kind of stuff.
yeah.
Um,
A lot of the things you talk about too really wrap around a lot of themes that we're seeing in the world. I feel like we're in this transition where people are trying to find the language to talk about it in different ways.
yeah.
And this idea of in my world as an executive coach, people don't come into coaching because they're broken. People come to coaching, and we come to coaching as their coaches, knowing they're already whole, full, and resourced.
Yes.
Right. And what we do is we partner as coaches with them to inquire, to ask good questions, to challenge, to be a cheerleader for them, or maybe
Yep.
offer a mirror of what we're seeing.
Yeah.
So this capable switch, hold them capable, is really resonates with me. I want to call out, though, it's not always easy. Often people will do the work for others because it's
Yeah.
easier.
Yeah.
Right, Nate?
Yeah. We call that rescuing. And well, actually, I have another word for it because I have three daughters. And here's my phrase for it: it's called non-consensual helping. And yes, I want to ask all the listeners out there today, have you ever been a victim of non-consensual helping? And it is a real violation of boundaries, of dignity, of self-determination, but with good intent. And it could even be what we might call a microaggression,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Here, let me show you. And if you don't mind me going there, I have three
Yeah.
daughters, and when they were growing up, this whole idea of non-consensual versus consensual is pretty important to a
Mm.
father. So we had a lot of conversations with our daughters about what's okay, what's not okay.
Yeah.
What do you need to watch out for? Where are the red flags? How do you take care of yourself? And I started making a list of phrases that an adult might say to another adult in the workplace, and we think it's okay. But if a boy said that to my daughter in the backseat of a car, we would probably have him arrested. Here's the phrases. Here, let me show you. Does that make the hair go up on the back of your neck? Or how about this one? Trust me, I know what I'm doing. Or you're going to thank me later. Those are all the kinds of things we say to each other. Basically, here, I got an answer. I'm going to come fix it for you, but you didn't give me permission to do that. Even though you might need help, you get to ask for it. You're responsible. And I'm here to be a resource. And so I think we do a lot of conversations with leaders there about the difference between being resourceful and building capability versus rescuing and undermining capability.
Wow. I never thought of it that way. So I will never not think of it that way, too. I want to pick up on the power dynamic in that as well. So we talk a lot in the old archetypes of leadership around the dominant, top down,
Mhm.
let's just use the term masculine energy.
Sure.
And there's just as much power pull in what you just described. Let me be clear that when you hold someone, I don't know if it's under your thumb or incapable without your help, not only are you chopping them off at their knees, not allowing them to be in their true
Mhm.
resource form,
Yeah.
but you are reinforcing a really unhealthy power dynamic.
Yes. Yes. And the old command and control leadership was kind of like you're on a need to know basis. I'll tell you what you need to know and you do it. You just do it. Be lucky to have a job, whatever. I give the orders, you do them. Let's say I am a peer, a leader,
Mm-hmm.
a mentor. I see you struggling. It could be something as simple as you're trying to figure out how to log in to LinkedIn. And I'm over here saying, I know how to do that. How do I handle that gap
Yeah.
between I have something that could help you, you need help,
Yeah.
but I want to do it in a way that maintains your dignity. So if I treated you as valuable, I would be there with you in your experience and I would say, gosh, that's got to be so hard. I hate it when that happens. Then I would be resourceful and say, I'm happy to help if you want. And just let me know. In other words, I'm here for you, but you get to decide. It is your journey. And I'm not going to withhold support. I'm going to let you know that support is there, it's available, and I'm willing. I'm not going to lord it over you, and I'm not going to withhold it from you. I'm going to let you be the one to decide if you need it and want it. Now, let's say you say, no, I'm good, and you never log in. Are you still accountable for having your LinkedIn post done? Yeah, I'm still going to hold you accountable tomorrow at our meeting. Did you get it done or not? The fact that you didn't avail yourself of the help doesn't take you off the hook. Um, but I'm also not going to say, well, if you would have asked me, I would have helped you because now I'm that's just passive aggressive crap. But what I
Yeah.
might say is, you still have to have it done by Friday, and I'm here if you need help.
Right. Let's talk about the gossip,
Yeah.
right? So the your other book talks about conflict without casualties, another great read. But you know the that scenario happens. I love the great example. Um, and then you go to the kitchen at the office, and I can't believe
Yep.
da 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 da
Yep.
da 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 da. You know how that does not demonstrate that you value someone,
No.
that you see them
No.
as capable. You're really talking behind their back.
Yeah.
Um, what advice do you have for the leader in that situation? Often
Mhm.
we don't hear the gossip too, right? It comes through hearsay
Yeah.
or whatever.
It depends which person in this scenario are you talking about? Because yeah, it's the
True.
meeting after the meeting, right? The real meeting that happens after the meeting. So, which
Yeah.
person in this would you like me to comment about?
Yeah. So let's speak to that's a great so interesting, isn't it? I
We
have
all
got
have a role to play in this
yeah, we
drama.
all have a role to play. So how about the one that is pissed off that they couldn't share their brilliant advice on how to
Yes.
log in the best way.
And now they're cornering me as a fellow, as a peer, and they're saying something like, "Can you believe they wouldn't even let me share my thing? They're always so insensitive. Nobody ever listens to me." And I'm hearing this. Um, if I wanted to be a drama ally, I would
Yep.
say, "I know, right? Leadership hates us." Blah, blah, blah. If I wanted to be a drama adversary, I would throw them under the bus and say, "Well, maybe you need to speak up." And now I'm not their ally, I'm their adversary, but we're both in drama because
We are.
I'm neither supporting them, but I'm
Yep.
also not helping. Or I could practice compassion accountability and I would say something like, "It really is hard to not feel heard in the meetings.
Ooh.
If you'd like any support on how to solve this, I'm happy to support you, but I'm not going to talk about somebody who's not in the room. How's that sit with you?"
Yeah.
So both of us are valuable, which means I see your experience. I hear you. You're
Yep.
capable of being a part of the solution here. I'm not going to fix it for you, but I'll be there with you. I'm going to be an ally for you. And the boundary is I'm not going to talk about someone that's not in the room. That's not how we
Yeah.
solve problems. So
Yep.
I just set a new set of rules for the game. And in that moment, that person could decide, do you also want to be valuable, capable, and live up to this?
Yeah.
Or do you want to go try to find another drama adversary?
Yeah.
It's your choice. If they walk away, I know their intentions. If they stay engaged, now we can start struggling together.
Yeah. But I hear you holding your truth
Yeah.
in that sense. Maybe
Oh,
that's
yeah.
not the right phrase, but holding what's most important to you. Sometimes it's really hard to be that lone iceberg
Yeah.
in a drama triangle. I love that expression, or in a world of gossip, or you hear about things in hearsay.
Yeah.
And one of the things I hear from many of my leaders is when things are going awry in the office, sometimes it's rampant. Sometimes it's one person who's
Yeah.
just also really,
Yeah.
really unhappy,
Yeah.
melancholy for a lot of reasons that don't necessarily even have to do with work. I want to be
Mm-hmm.
clear. This is not
Mm-hmm.
about throwing people under the bus. We are
Yeah.
compassionate. But the theme here is helping them see that they have a role to play and that they are whole and have choices
Yes.
made.
Yes. That they have choices,
Yeah.
and that we leaders have to be so clear about the boundaries between what are our accountabilities and what are our responsibilities. And as a leader, I'm accountable for the results that many people deliver, but I'm not responsible for doing that. And so as a leader, I get results through other people. And so to do that, then I have to have really, really critical, intentional relationships with those people where every interaction continues to reinforce who does what and that we're all okay in the process.
Such an important part. Those clarity of conversations, being responsible, the accountable versus the responsible. So, an example. Let me use a good example. Um, so, I'm CFO. Therefore, I am responsible for delivering a balanced budget and making sure that the board gets the numbers in time, right? So those are, but I'm not, so I guess I should say I'm accountable to that, but I'm not responsible for the activities in the
No,
files,
no,
right?
no, I'm only responsible for behaviors I have 100% control over, which is
Yeah.
maybe prepare the reports, um, make sure I got accurate numbers from every department, um, do the forecasting.
Yep.
But I'm accountable for how all that rolls up.
Yep.
And so I may have a department that is not delivering on the financial goals. I'm not accountable for their behavior, but I am responsible to have those conversations, to make sure they know what's going on, to talk to them about that. Now, if I decide I'm responsible for the results, that's when I start micromanaging,
Oh my gosh.
overbearing, and I start to do it. And it's because I never let a ball drop. That's why I got promoted, because at the end of the day, Nate makes sure everything gets done. Only problem is we do it at the expense of our team, at the expense of our own mental health, at the expense of actual
Yeah.
responsibility of other people.
Yeah. That's a really great point. I love that expression. And if you think what I want to really sort of shine a light on in this podcast is often the us them with women's leadership is the top downs have got it all wrong. We've got it all figured out, just
Yeah.
to be blunt. And
Yeah.
the one I often see too, is the throwing yourself under the bus. Oh, I wrote, it's probably my fault that I didn't have the instructions to you in advance,
Yeah.
right? So taking almost one for the team, which is very
Yeah.
typical self-sabotage for a
Yeah.
woman. Which lever is not in place in that case, Nate?
In that lever, there's a couple. One of them is value. I see myself as less valuable than the other person, which means my default position is, when in doubt, second guess myself. That's a deep. The other one
Yeah.
is responsible. In other words, I'm not taking responsibility for my feelings, meaning I've got some feelings in here, but instead of owning them, sharing them, talking about them, asking for help,
Yeah.
I'm subverting them and playing the role of the victim. Now, there
Yes.
may be really good reasons when there's power differentials, when there's some significant things. That
Yeah.
may be what I perceive as how I'm going to stay safe. It may be a survival mechanism, and I got to do that because I've seen consequences of when you do speak up. So there are plenty of good justifiable reasons, but it doesn't change the dynamic of what's happening and the way it hurts us inside. Think about, if I'm let's take a women leadership. We get
Mm-hmm.
let's say women get together and say, okay, well, we are not being treated well. So when does that become, when does it go from saying, hey, we got to support an ally and help each other, versus drama allies? All we're doing is reinforcing the narrative
Yes.
rather than coming together and saying, how do we change the narrative and support each other in the process
Yes.
of doing that? Um, our method that we teach for doing healthy conflict is, a lot of times women look at this and say, hang on a second, this might be a way for me to set a boundary without being mean. Because as women, we don't have the same permission to get
That's
angry.
right.
We don't have the same leeway to make a mistake. In a way, we have to be kinder, nicer. So how do we set boundaries? It's like, well, here's a way to do it, and you can still be super tough.
Yeah.
Never have to raise your voice. Never have to
Yeah.
fall apart. Never have to
Yeah.
freak out, and
Yeah.
still be able to reinforce those switches are on.
Yeah. And expect success
Oh
too.
yeah,
Kind of just
absolutely.
right. And I feel like that I it's important here. The couple of languages that I just want to add in, this idea that women have a smaller box to play in is proven in the research. But I
Yep.
also want to say women of color or our BIPOC community has an even smaller box, you guys. So I think when we talk about allyship and some of these techniques, our opportunity is to amplify some of those voices,
Yeah.
to give a little bit more space at the table, to help them. Uh, it's again being very mindful of not wanting to swoop in. I want to be clear, but finding the right platform, or maybe it's like the debrief on the way out of the meeting, and sort of having a heart to heart about
Yeah.
how did you feel that went. Again, asking permission. I'd
Yeah.
love to know, is there anything at that meeting you would have liked from me, that
Yeah.
I think I could have done,
Yes.
rather than, like you said, making those assumptions.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to learn about what it was like to be you. How
Yeah,
can I be most helpful?
yeah,
And you can count on me for XYZ going forward. I was interviewing Amy Edmondson the other day for my podcast. She's well known for research on psychological safety, and now
yeah,
she's written a new book on failure. And she talks about how women do not have the same leeway to fail. Um, when a woman makes a mistake or fails, it's like, oh, see, it's because you're a woman. But when a man makes a mistake or fails, like, oh well, something went wrong, whatever. So there's a small box for that. But
yeah,
failure and mistakes are such an incredible opportunity to have compassion and accountability. How do we step into that, step up, and turn it into an empowering experience,
yeah.
where we take ownership over it, we learn from it, we ask for help, and we come out swinging on the other side?
Yeah. And to be a leader that embraces those learnings, right? Those pilots. Lately, I've been saying, instead of the word trying, I've been using the word play or experiment. There's something about changing the language that really lightens the load. So even if it's just a mindset shift for folks, just that piece really helps me explore things that might feel, I'm going to be honest, sometimes scary
Yeah.
for women. And
Yeah.
I wrote on my notes here, I have a whole pile of notes here from just in preparation, and that trauma small t, that many of us feel when we speak up or when we start stepping into a potentially conflicting situation. So it doesn't even have to be conflict, but
Mhm.
the idea of conflict, I do believe, and what I love about this book is you can realize that it makes you scared, and you can show up with these tools in a way that honors yourself and the person in front of you, because we
Well,
slip out of the
yeah,
win-lose dyad, right? That dyad of
yeah.
win-lose is a killer.
I often say, I want to be really clear with people that compassion isn't something we do to other people. It's who we are with them. And it starts with
Mm,
who we are. And
yeah.
all of the frameworks we teach, all the communication templates, conflict skills, it's all about I'm going to show up in a way that demonstrates that I'm valuable and you're valuable, that I'm capable and you're capable, and that I'm responsible and you're responsible. I'm going to demonstrate that through my behaviors. What you choose to do is not under my control. How you choose to respond doesn't define me. It may hurt, it may be scary, but it doesn't define me. And by showing up differently, I'm giving you a new way to be with me.
Right.
And I think one of the things when we come at people
Mm-hmm.
with shame-based tactics, with you're wrong or you don't understand it or you need to, they're going to walk away. But when we come at them with a way to be different and preserve dignity, it's a whole new ballgame.
Yeah. So like the expression, uh, I'm just so stressed, right? You make me so stressed every time I come in here. I'm
Yeah.
literally playing a role here. Every time I come into this office for our one-on-ones, I feel stressed and I walk out feeling like I have more things to do,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So,
Well, this may sound a little controversial, but one of the phrases that I want people to eliminate from their vocabulary is make me feel. Stop giving other people control over your feelings. And it may seem subtle, but every time you say, she triggered me, that
ah,
stresses me out, you make me angry, all it is saying is the world is in charge of my feelings. Take back control of your emotions.
yeah.
Just own them. They're yours. No matter what anybody else did, they may have done some really reprehensible stuff. And we're going to talk about that. But my feelings belong to me. You didn't give them to me. They're mine. And I get to own what I do with them next.
Mm, mm.
Don't give up that power.
And that is really, at the end of the day, this idea that we are sovereign beings that are responsible for our actions. And as leaders, is there a place for a leader to hold a mirror up and explain what they're seeing? How do we do that in a way
Yeah.
that's respecting, valuable, capable, and resourceful or
Yeah.
responsible?
Um, Here's what it might look like. I was really uncomfortable with something that happened in the meeting earlier, and I just want to talk to you about it. When when the conversation went in this direction
Yeah.
and you shared these things, here's how I saw everybody respond. And this goes against our group norm of letting everybody speak before you make a decision. I'm curious how you saw that.
Hmm.
That's calling we in the old day we would have said you just called them out. But well, it's compassion accountability in that whole situation. I'm no blaming, but clearly we're talking about a behavior that's not okay, why it matters, how I felt about it, and we're letting them say, where are you at on this?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so
I hear it as calling up too. This idea of
love that.
calling up, right? Like that, um, I had a wonderful conversation, something that's never left. I can tell you exactly where I was standing when I had this conversation with a dear friend. And I said something in passing about my team, about I need them to da 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 for me was the thing. And she caught me. She said, Jenny, it's nice that you want them to do it for you, but what's even better is if they want to do it for them.
Yeah.
I've never forgotten that.
Yes. And can we take it one step further?
Go.
The word want and the word need couldn't be more different.
Yeah.
When we say, I need you to do it, what we're saying is, I'm somehow not going to be okay if you don't.
Yeah.
But when I say, I want you to, now we're in it together. When I tell my daughter, I need you to be home by 11,
Mhm.
what I'm doing is setting it up so that I can attack her and throw her under the bus if she's late. But
Yep.
when I say, I want you to be home by 11, I'm not
Mhm.
off the hook. Then we got to talk. We got to come to a new
Yeah.
commitment and agreement. How often do parents say to their kids, I need you to clean up your room? It's like,
Yeah.
what? Are you not going to be okay, mom? Like,
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
not in charge of you. Um,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
thank you for bringing that up. It's those
Yeah.
words and those phrases,
Yeah.
they are so powerful.
Need. It is really a loaded word, right? It also implies something's not okay right now, too.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think there's so much about language. I read a book one time called 12 Words that I forget the title, but it's the idea that words can change your world.
Yeah.
And so in a podcast about mindset, about leadership, about personal leadership, about calling ourselves out and up, guys,
Yeah.
this is not to our listeners, this is not easy stuff. This is not
Yeah.
stuff that necessarily rolls off your tongue.
Yeah.
But I think the principles behind it are easily accessible, even in this podcast that we've
Yeah.
had. Valuable, capable, responsible. If you're not going in with a positive intent and the idea that you believe that the person in front of you and you can come to a solution together, you're probably not in the right mindset.
Yeah. Well, imagine the difference between two ways of saying the same thing. One of them, all the switches are turned off, and it goes like this. Maybe could you have it in by Friday? In other words, or not. Or how about this? Will you have it in by Friday? Can you have it in by Friday versus will you have it in by Friday?
Yeah.
That is such a small turn of phrase.
Yeah.
And if someone is feeling disempowered, nobody listens to them, that's the smallest thing you can change, and it will have a dramatic impact, and the other person won't even know what happened. And all you have to do is say, "Will you have it in by Friday?" Because now you're going to know where they stand. They're either going to say yes or no, and then we got to talk about it. Can you have it in by Friday? Is basically like you're letting them off the hook
You
already
are.
and
You
saying that,
totally are.
yeah, and you're saying like, what I want is really not that important. I'm just going to broadcast that right up front. Or did everyone have a chance to read that email before
Oh,
the meeting? Everyone had a chance. They've had 2 days. The real question is, did you read the email? That's the
yeah.
real question. Now we get to have the real conversation.
I love that because it leaves space because people are responsible and take care of their own actions,
Yeah.
behaviors, emotions for the important stuff,
Yeah.
right? Not the
Yeah.
drama, not the check in, not the, oh, sorry, I'm so
Yeah.
late or whatever, right? It leaves space for the actual work and the
Yeah.
connection in the
Yeah.
team. Wow, Nate, this has been a really validating, inspiring. It's really fun for me to have read the theory and to get the chance to animate it on this podcast has been really, really fun and very practical. I will put in the show notes, guys, just for you guys, like the links to the books. I'll link to you, Nate. Probably LinkedIn's the easiest way for them to get a hold of you, I'm guessing.
Actually, it is. It's great. You can find me
Yeah.
on LinkedIn, and you're a coach,
Yeah.
and I'm guessing you have a community of coaches. There might be some coaches out here
Yeah.
listening to this.
Yeah.
We have a very specific toolkit for coaches,
Okay.
and it includes an assessment to help coachees really get a new lens to look through all the dynamics we're talking about and be able to help the coach also walk that fine line between being a facilitator of compassion accountability,
Yeah.
but not a rescuer, not a victim, not coming down hard on the client. And it really keeps the boundaries around that relationship so healthy.
Oh, I love that. I really love that. So thank you for that. Please do reach out to find out more. Get to know Nate's books. What's on the docket? What are you excited about for 2025?
What's hot, hot, hot that I've got a lot of passion on now is I'm taking actually a break from my own podcast this year to do a research sabbatical, and one of the big questions I'm studying is the relationship between trust and conflict. And here's the big question, very oversimplified, but here's the big question: which comes first, trust or conflict?
Wow. In other words, do you learn to trust through conflict, or do you have to have the trust before you can truly engage in conflict?
It's a profoundly different relationship with conflict depending on which one you choose.
Right.
And profoundly different understandings of what trust means and how we build it. So I'm going to be exploring that dynamic this year. We're doing actually a survey. We're going to do a research
Okay.
study, and then also interviewing some of the top minds on this topic and gleaning what are people thinking about this?
Yeah, it's very timely
Yeah.
with when our sense of trust with many institutions and people is eroding in this time where, like, this rigid thinking is really taking over.
Yeah.
I think people like yourself and I really have worked so hard to be flexible with my brain, open with my brain, not come with assumptions, to not be pre subscribed, or what's that word?
Yeah.
But like to keep it. I am seeing this sponge and be able to adapt, right? I had my
Yeah.
notes for the podcast, Nate, but I didn't want to read from them because I would kill the
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Personally, I trust people that are curious,
yeah.
open-hearted, and open-minded. I don't trust people that are so sure of things, because to be so sure on either end, that kind of hubris means that you've long ago closed your mind already and perhaps closed your heart. Why would I trust somebody like that?
Yeah.
And so living in the gray is hard. It takes incredible courage. And that's where the action is for me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we're wanting to explore.
Mm, I love it. Well, I can't wait to hear more about the research. I feel like shout out to all those coaching clients and women out there that are talking about self doubt and worried that they still have this self doubt. And Nate's just highlighted it. And I talk a lot about how one of the cornerstones of confidence comes with shifting your relationship with self doubt. The idea that it's always going to be there, that it's okay, it's part of life to have self doubt. That's actually, you're not a narcissist, by the way. And that self-doubt is really like a safety tool that you can always access, but you don't necessarily, as I always say, you don't have to believe everything you think.
I love
um,
that. Yes.
so right.
Yes.
So I can't wait to hear more about that trust. I'm curious. I believe trust is a really slow burn to enjoy, but on the flip side, quickly broken. I think we're experiencing that right now. Um, I have. We're gonna have you back because I'm in mid sentence to more questions. Thank you for your time on the podcast today.
You bet, Jenny. You too. Thank you for your great questions and your curious spirit.
My pleasure. My pleasure. And that's a real compliment. So, folks, if you haven't already subscribed, if you want more of these kinds of conversations, my passion this year really is the new paradigm of leadership. How do we talk about it? How do we describe it? What does it feel like and smell like in your offices? And just like this podcast, what are the tools that we can add to our toolkit so that we're 1% better than we were yesterday, guys? That's all I'm looking for is 1%, because I know what the power of exponential will do. And it's not up to your boss to do it. It's not up to your parents or your partner. It's for you to explore that journey. And I just want to say thanks for listening all to the end. Okay. Goodbye, everyone, and go be great.